Okay, hello Niels. Thank you for being here today with us. I'm Zvezdana. I'm a student at the University of Belgrade studying international relations at the Faculty of Political Science. I've been part of this program as an interview, and I'm really happy that you're here today, and thank you so much for taking part in the NextGen Lean. Can you maybe share a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Susanna, for the invitation. Happy to be with you also. Niels, originally from Holland, living in Switzerland now for over 12 years. A background in business originally, but never too motivated to become a change maker, do anything with sustainability. And through a lot of coincidences, I ended up at the University of St. Gallen and saw a poster of a pizza there, and that was for Oikos and Pizza, which I then joined, and I would say changed my life. Going forward, I became very active with Oikos, organized events, conferences, became president of the local chapter. And then through Oikos, I heard about this thing called social entrepreneurship. And by coincidence, again, I met somebody who had an idea for a social enterprise in Zurich. So bringing the Impact Hub to Zurich. It's quite early on. I think most of you know what the Impact Hub is, but it's a global network of collaborative spaces supporting change makers who want to bring sustainable ideas into the world. And yeah, we grew Impact Hub from 1 location to 3 to 4. When the Impact Hub was fairly big, I decided to start a spin-off from the Impact Hub, Stride, which is an unschool for entrepreneurial leadership. So we had sort of an alternative MBA for people in the profession who wanted to do something more purposeful. Then became a father and decided that I don't want to work the same amount of hours, but want to be home with my children as well. So started working 50% at ETH and was 50% at home with my kids, and my wife did the same. So after 2 years of ETH, where I basically failed in bringing sustainability due to the curriculum, I now joined Climate Kick, working in scaling some of the entrepreneurial programs that they have here.
Thank you so much for presenting yourself a little bit more. I know that you have really inspiring story, professional story about ethics, values, stakeholder relationship. Will you share it with us?
Yeah, definitely. So we were asked to think about a professional story that is relevant, and I think the one that I would like to share is about how we, with the Impact Hub, Zurich went from niche to mainstream, and the kind of capabilities we use to get there. So it's important to start with the context. This was 2011, 2012. Social entrepreneurship was emerging as a topic, but it was very much in a niche. And we did quite well in Zurich establishing it. We had a lot of incubation programs. But after 2 or 3 years of doing this, we'd grown a team from 4 to 8 people. But we realized that the number of new applications for our incubation programs, the number of people we saw at events was not really growing anymore. And we felt sort of like, hey, are we getting to the limit of this niche of what we were really doing? And I said, we took some time as the founding team, like saying together, what do we really want? Because we're passionate about social entrepreneurship, but what we really cared about for us was changing the economy, right? So we wanted to have a new normal in the economy where sustainability was the very core of it. And yeah, we came a bit to the realization that that social entrepreneurship was not going to do it. It was not an acceptable and interesting story for the mainstream to really change the bigger levers in society. So there's also something around systems thinking in here, I would say. And then there were 2 things that happened in parallel. So the first thing was a bit of I would say, reflection and research phase that we did, where we realized, okay, what really big trends are emerging right now that we can maybe hop on, that are attractive to the mainstream, that CEOs will read about and will want to meet with it about. And that was digitalization. So everything was going digital, and we realized that the future of business was going to be digital. So we said, why don't we see if we can sort of bring sustainability under that whole new story, the whole narrative that was emerging around digitalization and the future of the economy. And there we use something that I learned in my Oikos days, actually, from Claude Siegenthaler, an advisor at Oikos St. Gallen, the metaphor of the Trojan horse, where you bring a topic, a meta topic in that is maybe not directly related to sustainability, but through that lens you bring in the topic of sustainability. And that's what we did. So we changed our whole focus and slogan and niche and everything that we're doing, from enabling social entrepreneurship to prototyping the future of business. And we said, prototype the future of business. It is digital, but the future of business is also sustainable, because otherwise there is no future of business. So we don't even need to discuss it. And it's, instead of something that we were pushing people for to become, it became sort of a normal thing. We didn't discuss it. It was part of the new normal of the way we operated. We ran programs. And this really, really worked. So suddenly we were getting different kind of meetings, we were different kind of supports. But that alone, like positioning alone, is not enough. You also need to fill it with substance. And this is something around stakeholder relationships and ethics and values, I think, is we're like, okay, how can we actually get credibility in digitalization? Because we didn't have any, frankly. And at the same time, there was a co-working space popping up in Zurich called Collab Zurich, where the hacker community was, and they were doing really, really well. And in a traditional economic paradigm, you would say they were competitors, because they were offering a similar product on the market, and certain customers were going to them and not to us. But we were like, wait, if we say the future of business is collaborative, we need to live that spirit and see maybe we can work together with them. And I reached out to them. We met them, and fairly soon realized that actually, even though they use different languages, the values that stand behind what they try to do are very similar. They also care about protecting our climate. They also care about an inclusive society. We're just using, different languages. And we had a very long process of getting to know each other, their founding team and ours. And we were at that time still about 2 or 3 times bigger than they were. But we spent a lot of time in getting to know each other. And at first we were like, okay, let's look at this from a business perspective. You have 300 square meters, we have 600, you have 100 members, and we have 250 or so. But we realized if we're going to go into such a transactional kind of negotiation, we're getting nowhere, we're getting stuck. And so we started to go back again to the values bit. Like, what do you really care about? Why do you do what you want to do? And we started to make a list of the values and realized they were very similar, basically. And made a list of, in the end, of non-negotiables, of things that we really both wanted to have. And the more we went on the value level, the more we could cross off that list. And in the end, we realized there were only 2 things that we really, really cared about. So what they cared about, they wanted to do this partnership at eye level. So we really do it collaboratively. And the other thing that we cared about is we wanted to stay part of the Global Impact Hub network. And so we realized, okay, we will continue under our brand and our naming, but they will come in as equal partners, as 50-50. And for them to give up the brand that they cared about was really a hard step. They've invested 2 years of their time in it. And for us, to give up 50% of ownership, even though we were bigger, was also sort of a strange step, because we, from a transactional perspective, we didn't have to do it. But because we aligned on the values, we decided to then, to really, really do it. And this whole phase that took about 4 months or so, we called it dating in the end, right? Before you get married with somebody, you want to date them to get to know each other. We did small projects together, we did tests. And then at some point we realized like we really wanted to do it. And then we called it the marriage. So we stayed with the metaphor, where basically our communities were, we're going together. We got a very big new space together. By now we have 2 more, we're over 1,000 members. It's very successful. They are some of our best friends and business partners. And I think, had we not gone back to the values bit, had we not invested in personal relations over professional ones, and had we not started this whole exercise with sort of the systems perspective of how we can change the mainstream over staying in the niche, this would not have happened.
It's really inspiring and interesting story. Thank you for sharing. Maybe I can ask you, what have been the challenges and obstacles in using the values you have in your work and collaboration?
Well, it's not the starting point of a conversation. You don't go in and say, "Hi, I'm Niels, what are your values?" It needs spirals, basically. So sometimes in meetings or in kind of, you have the feeling you're going around in circles because you're talking about similar things. You're going back. And what we did, we realized is the spiral, right? Which is also in circles, but you go up, you go further up towards the goal you want to achieve. And so, we started talking about, okay, what is your plans? What are our plans? Do we want to go together, etc.? And then we realized that we have to talk about values, right? That was the right time. And early on, I mean, they were techies, right? From in their very core. So really, hackers, hoodies on, headphones, hacking away, and we were the ecological leftist, tree hugging kind of folks. And had we come with values, they would have sent us away, right? But in the end, they said like, okay. At some point, they came like, okay, we do all this open source stuff because we care about democratization things, etc. And that's one of our values. And they said, values, right? And then it started coming up. But so you have to find the right setting and framing. And to really talk about values deeply, you also have to establish some kind of a trust base.
Thank you. If people would remember only one key message from your story, what would you like it to be?
One key message. That's a good question. Yeah, I think it's trying unconventional ways in order to achieve something bigger. So there is this whole literature out about incremental versus disruptive change. And incremental change for us would have been to do a small extra acceleration program, maybe add 1 or 2 startups here and there, etc. And the disruptive one was to completely change our narrative, which was risky, right? It could have gone completely wrong. But ask yourself this question: are we doing enough to achieve what we want to achieve? So one of our advisors, Thomas Vellacott, who's the CEO of WWF Switzerland, said this lesson that always stick with me. He said, at WWF, every year we were reaching our targets, yet the state of the environment was getting worse and worse. So we're not setting the right targets. And that was similar to us, right? So we were achieving our targets, we were growing, but the world was getting worse and worse. So we were not doing enough. And in order to change that, you cannot keep doing the same, right? The definition of stupidity, keep doing the same and expecting different results. So if you want to go to a higher level, you need to try something and be prepared to fail.
Thank you. Maybe I would ask you to share with us maybe a practice that you would recommend when it comes to learning about ethics, values, or about system thinking, like one of those competencies and maybe your way of practicing.
A personal practice or generally a practice?
Maybe personal, or somebody you can told or show how to practice ethics and values, or something like others, so they can think about that in that ways or act in that way, so they can learn more about that. If you have any personal practice that, if you have any personal practice, that's maybe the best to show how you practice that, and maybe how that also can help others.
So maybe 2 short ones. So the professional practice, I think, is surround yourself with excellent advisors who can challenge you, and then asking them the tough questions. So our advisory board played a major role in us making that shift from niche to mainstream, because we went to them, we said, hey, look, this is our strategy, this is our plan, and this is what we think we can achieve with that. And they challenge us, like, are you doing enough, right? Are you doing enough? So establishing honest advisors who share the same values as you, have the same vision, is extremely important if they can be frank with you, right? Because you don't want advisors to pat your back, but you want advisors who can really mirror you and challenge you. And we had that, and they played a very important role in this. I think that's a professional practice, to surround yourself with advisors, for that purpose. I think a personal practice that I use is a lot of self-reflection, right? So when it is around important meetings or important things, I sit back and I journal for myself before and afterwards what I think went well, what not. And usually I will have one or two trusted or a few trusted people there that I ask for feedback. Not every meeting, because it gets tiresome for the people around you, but certainly around the more important ones or in the right settings. This whole thing about reflecting what you did right, and doing that from a base of being very secure about what you can do and with the ambition to learn, I think is important. So again, not mistaking receiving negative feedback with criticism. No, negative feedback is a way to learn. Again, it sounds very cliche, but if you get that approach to any situation, and if somebody told you, in that meeting you were way too harsh, it's not nice to hear, right? I physically get a reaction. I don't want to hear that, because that's a biological thing. We're groomed to want to hear compliments, right? But if you get to that mental state where you're self-centered and you're like, okay, that person is saying that because they want to achieve something bigger in the world together with me, and the person is saying that in order for me to do it better next time. If you get to that place, you're at a stage to grow. And I think Oikos is a perfect opportunity to learn those kind of skills, because it needs practice.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your inspiring story. I'm sure our students will learn a lot, and thank you for your contribution. We really appreciate that, for taking time to participate today in the interview, and hope to see you sometime again.
Yeah, all the best with the programs, and to everybody who's listening to this, you're in the right spot. Go out and make change. We really need you. So thank you for organizing.
Thank you so much. Okay.